Welcome back again to my channel here. We are going to review what was week 4 of the Collegiate Indoor Track and Field season for 2025. Again, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. And comment. Again, I do connect with you all in the comments, and I'm always appreciative of those comments. But we have an exciting show today. It's a lot happened this weekend, a lot, and there's some certain conversational starters that I want to have with you all because I do think that they're going to generate some interest in the comment section. But briefly, just mention that there are 17 new number one performances, with 10 coming from the women. There's also an NCAA record and quite a few all time performances. So, busy weekend. In our review of the format this week, first leg for first time in a while will be distance. Our second leg will be the sprints. Our third leg will be the throws. And our anchor leg will be the jumps today. And we've got some exciting stories in each section to talk about. In regards to some of the images that you see, some of them are not from the meet that you may have heard from this weekend. They're from pictures that I'm able to find on the web. A lot of these meets I'm obviously not there in person. Hopefully that's the future to be able to go to all these meets. I have a big meet every weekend. But I do also want to indicate thank you all for supporting and not letting the pictures be a negative point of the video. So again, thank you. But our first leg will get started, which is distance. And we got to start here because it's where we have the NCAA record. And we'll look at the men's side first. Ethan Strand, who broke the NCAA record in the mile. And I said this in the preview video, but I didn't even know it would be this good. We're expecting a great year in the mile. And I said that confidently, knowing what was coming. I knew it was going to be a bevy of sub 4 minute runners, and now it's a foregone conclusion. If you're not under 4 minutes, you're not competing. And we now have a sub 350 runner in college, 3:48:32 by Ethan Strand of North Carolina. He is really kind of taken on the distance star role from Parker Wolf. That may change come outdoor. Again, I saw Parker in person and ran probably the most incredible 5,000 I've ever seen. But that being said, let's give Ethan Strand his props because he currently now has two NCAA leads. He is number one in the 3,000 and number one in the mile. So give him hats off to North Carolina distance program, which has just skyrocketed and become one of the most competitive in the nation. He's a solid star there, and a new record in the mile. He wasn't even a guy that I had fully mentioned to be considered. I really have to change that. And it sounds erratic, too quick, but anytime someone breaks the NCAA record, you have to catapult them into consideration. It's just fact. But 3:48:32, we've never had someone sub 350 in college. It's third all time indoors. This is a legit bona fide star. And I look forward to seeing what else he does later this season because he could potentially pull off the double. He is currently number one in two categories. Hats off to Ethan Strand for an outstanding weekend and great job so far this season. Uh, our last distance story under the men's side is Hampton Samuel in the 5K for New Mexico. He had an outstanding year last year as a freshman, and now this year in the 5,000, he's ran 13:04:92, one of the best times ever at altitude. Also, want to highlight for him, he technically is the new number one because the actual number one time, which was an NCAA record set by Graham Blanks of Harvard, Graham Blanks has actually already turned pro. Shortly after that performance and that great cross country season he had, he decided to turn pro. So he is not currently a a college athlete competing for Harvard. He's a professional athlete. And so that gives Samuel technically the number one collegiate time. Now, moving to the women's side, you had four new noticeable number one performances. Seeing the women this past weekend really turn things up. You have Megan Hunter of BYU, which had a phenomenal weekend, by the way. Megan Hunter is their 800 guru, 2 minutes, point 21, almost at 159. Maybe she'll get there at some point this season. And it's just now starting to be February. This is technically the last weekend from January, which, unfortunately for a lot of you all feels so long. But to me, it was an incredible January, specifically for our sport. I haven't seen any of the other big guns really run yet. We're still waiting on what Michaela Rose is going to do. We're waiting on what the Stanford runners are going to do, whether it's Juliet Whitaker or Royson Willis. But a time like that makes you pause and go, oh, now we've got another contestant for the title. Still, Juliet's my favorite, but we'll see because we are looking at a really strong field in the 800. And as well in the mile on the women's side. Again, another number one. I'm moving this specific event back to its open. I was moving more towards someone naming a leader. Not now. It has changed pretty much every week here. I'm constantly talking about the mile on the women's side. And Laura Pellicoro of Portland University, which we know is a solid distance program, and kind of gets overshadowed by Oregon, which did have a strong weekend. We'll talk about them in a minute. But she's now the leader in the mile, 4:25:60. She's an Italian runner. Things are going well for her there at Portland. I'm curious to see what else she can do, but 4:25 is no slouch time, and it just keeps going down and down and down. I'm wondering where we get off when it comes to this mile. I want to know what the time is going to be. I didn't think we get, I still don't think we're going to get a Maya Ramsden type time, but we may. Um, Moving further up, Amy Bunnage in the 3K from Stanford. 8:43:82, one of the best performances indoors all time. An outstanding performance for her at Stanford, and things are just going very, very well for JJ Clark when it comes to his middle distance runners and his long distance runners. Things just seem to be coming together very well. They look to have a very strong distance core. I'm waiting to see what do they do in the DMR. How are things going to shape up for them? Because it seems they're moving along slowly, but that's kind of typical for Stanford. I think we'll get a understanding of where they stand when it comes to the Big Ten championships. Assuming the ACC championships, they should be in the Big Ten though. The other big story and the last one for the women in distance is Oregon's DMR. 10:48:45. I said in the preview that you might need 11 minutes to get there. We're already at 7 to 8 teams under 11 minutes. Four more teams get under 11. That's the field. So I'm happy that I was correct, but I'm surprised that I'm correct this early in the season. This is week 4, and we already have a sub 10:50 team. 10:48:45, and also a bevy of milers always going to be strong in the sprints. Probably not as strong as they were in recent years, but Jaden Mace is, pretty solid sprinter. It's not as deep as it has been. But that didn't matter. 10:48:45, and there are 3 teams under 10:52. Florida had a strong performance, and this was all done at the Razorback Invitational. They were strong as well, and this is going to be a really, really great race come championship season because I think the NCAA record is under threat, clearly. 10:48:45, hats off to the Lady Oregon Ducks. Now, moving on to our second leg, the sprints, we have 4 stories here. And on the men's side, it all is Florida. And as a Florida fan, I actually am really happy to say that. Wanya McCoy in the 200, I'm feeling very confident about my prediction and preview about him being a name that's a threat because here he is now the leader in the 200 with a 20.45. And I do expect for him to further lower that time again because that's not even his personal best. And he looked very comfortable running that. This again is early in the season, and we know the Gators really tend to be prepared when it comes to championship season. And this is actually a solid knock on them because now they have an NCAA leader in an individual sprint. And now they have 2 because Wayne McCoy is the leader in the 60. Well, he was a leader. He was one of the leaders in the 60. Now he's a leader in the 200, but also in the 400, Genoa McIver. We knew that we were going to be mentioning his name because he broke the 600 record indoors a couple weeks ago at Texas Tech. Here he is leading the NCAA in the 400, 45:19. We're in a very solid, comfortable 400. This is a much better start to the season than last year. I think maybe he transferred in the middle of the indoor season or right before the school year started. It seems that some rest in the summer, great training, and no surprise. I mean, Coach Holloway has had some of the best 400-meter runners ever. Karan Clement held the world record and the school record still for so long. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but for him to run 45:19 now, and we know how they get when it comes to championship season, I think we have our 44 guy. We're going to see. He did run 44:18 as an anchor leg. We saw that incredible anchor. Hats off to the Gators. A great way to start. Two NCAA leaders along with the lead in the 4x4, which these two guys are both a part of. On the women's side, you have Isabella Whitaker in the 400 for, of course, Arkansas, which clearly it's paying off. She ran 51:29 in the open 400 and also split 50.1, I believe, in the 4x4. This is a really strong start for her. Things are going very well. The transfer worked beautifully in her favor. I'm not going to say she's the favorite right now. She's one of the favorite because to me, it feels as though this event on the women's side and even on the men's side, despite these two great times, it's still a little too quiet. There are some names that I haven't seen run enough yet. On the men's side, we're getting closer and closer to it getting to it boiling over, but I think so many athletes are waiting for a couple weeks or maybe next week. We'll see because we know the SEC championships and the Big 12 championships and the Big 10 are coming up, and that's when I think we'll see some great 400 times, but I feel like it's still been a little too quiet. In the 4x4, Arkansas was without Kaylin Brown. She did pull up, I believe, in the 200. So I hope it's not a serious injury. I hope that she's rested and prepared because they still ran 3:27:47 without her, courtesy of a 50-point run from Isabella. But they were very close to being walked down by Georgia. And Georgia is at full strength. No one's, not healthy. And Aaliyah Butler is slowly but surely running into shape. And my hope for Arkansas is that they can put together another strong performance against Georgia come a couple weeks when they're going to be competing again. But that's a solid time. 3:27:47, 3:27:9 for Georgia. We're going to have a bit of a barn burner in the 4x4 come postseason. Moving to our third leg, the throws, we have two stories here. On the men's side, it's not really of a story, it's the same old thing. Tariq Robinson O'Hagan of Ole Miss in the shot put yet again. Nah, 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 nah. This guy is consistently number one. It's almost like if he feels that someone's breathing down his neck in his event, he's like, fine, I'll move the national lead out further. And he did that. 68 feet, 11 and 3/4 inches, 21.02 meters. Outstanding mark for him. He's getting closer and closer to 70 feet. On the women's side, it's the defending champion, Maya Lesner from Colorado State. It's been a while since we heard about her in the shot put. She had that strong indoor season, was taken over by Jada Ross. Excellent start for her, 61 feet, 8.5 inches, 18.81 meters, an excellent 60 plus throw. Way to begin her season. And I feel like she needed a mark like this to get started, to remind people of who she was. She took a backseat because of, the loss to Jada Ross and because Jada Ross's performance outdoors was so incredible. But let's remember that Maya Lesnar is a defending indoor champion and she is very capable because she's already proven it. Now, moving to our anchor leg, we have the jumps and we have five stories here. On the men's side, we're looking at Alexander Solovev in the pole vault from Texas A&M. We finally have our 19-foot jumper. We have someone there, and I'm going to immediately move him to the favorite position because this is not the first time I've mentioned him. He's been mentioned here maybe two or three times. So it's starting to be a real positive, and he's starting to look like he's the guy. 19 feet, 1/4 inches, 5.80 meters. Shout out to the program there at Texas A&M. They really sort of dug in, become competitive in the pole vault, and this is a sign that they are moving in the right direction. The other big story on the men's side is Jonathan Ceramis of the triple jump from Missouri. He's by way of France. 55 feet 7 inches or 16.94 meters. That was a big, huge jump. And now that Oklahoma's in the SEC, we're going to get an opportunity to see Jonathan Ceramis of Missouri and Brandon Green of Oklahoma go against each other. That's going to be an interesting battle because you got two really good triple jumpers in the same conference, and they're probably going to be seeing each other soon, possibly at the Tyson Invitational. On the women's side in the jumps, you have one of my favorites, and I have good reason, seen her in person, and I picked her because she was a defending outdoor champion, but that's Chloe Timberg of Rutgers. 15 feet, 5 3/4 inches in the pole vault, 4.72 meters. And this was a weekend for the pole vaulters, not just on the men's side, but really on the women's side. We now have 5 athletes over 15 feet, including defending indoor champion Hannah Moll and her sister. So, and this is not to knock Hannah Moll off, but Chloe Timberg really has kind of seized control. And it's going to be a battle to the finish come championship time. And we're going to see them before the national championship because, courtesy of conference realignment, they're both in the Big Ten. So, Big Ten championships, which will be held in Indianapolis, is going to be a hot ticket because we're going to be able to see two of the best pole vaulters that we've seen in collegiate history. And then you have in the long jump, Anthea Charlton of Florida breaking a Bahamian indoor record, becoming number two in the long jump all time indoors, 22 feet 11 inches, 6.98 meters, almost a 7 meter jump indoors, and that was her seasonal debut. Whew! Are we getting a 23-foot jump from her? This was an outstanding start to her season. This gives, puts Florida right in the driver's seat to continue to recruit those outstanding jumpers. She's the next big star for the program. That is a huge mark. Huge jump. Number two all time? Whew. I didn't think they had talent on the team that was going to surpass what Claire Bryant did just yet. But Anthea Charlton proved me wrong. Excellent, excellent mark by her. And then our last story on the women's side comes from another defending champion in the pentathlon, Jaden O'Brien of Notre Dame, seizing the number one mark in the pentathlon, 4,552 points, competing well for the Notre Dame Irish. She is defending champion. She's like the jack of all trades. She does a lot of things very well, but if there's anything I think she's, an expert at, it's possibly hurdles and the jumps. But we'll see with what she does because she just really, to me, solidified her mark as the number one. But I want to see her against Christine Blazovica of Illinois now, formerly of Texas. But I'm not sure if Christine can even catch what Jaden is doing. But because Jaden is off to a strong start and it's, still early in the season. They'll probably compete against each other one more time before a national championship. The irony is that Notre Dame is not in the Big Ten. They're in the ACC, so we won't see them in a conference championship. Hopefully, we get to see them at some meet sometime during the regular season competing against each other. And then we'll get to see them at championship. I just really, really am curious to see what becomes of that. I think Jaden O'Brien solidified her favorite status. 4,552 points right now is a pretty solid mark. I'm curious to see what she does later on in the season, but this is a great way to begin the season. And there we have it. Week 4 wrapped up. We're moving right along. We're now in February. The times are going to continue to drop. The marks are going to continue to get farther and farther. And the team title picture to me is started to really clear up. So during this week, we're going to have a rankings discussion video. I saw the rankings last week and I thought that's way too early. Because I knew, specifically with Florida men, I saw them at 21. I was like, yeah, no. They're going to improve their ranking. Obviously, after this past weekend, they may, I can't say they'll get in the top 10, but I think they'll get closer to the top 10. The women's side, we saw Illinois' ranking, but I think this weekend really highlights there's a lot that's still missing from the indoor season, in that we can have a discussion this week about the rankings finally, but the first week's rankings were, to me, too premature. So that is our video. So please like, subscribe, comment, share. And thank you as always for supporting my channel. I look forward to chatting with you again this week when we do the rankings video. But we got a big weekend coming up. Should be interesting to see what happens at Clemson, at the University of Michigan this week. We've got some big meets, and it should be some fireworks happening. Thanks again. Speak to you guys soon.